Have you ever seen any of those devlogs where the dev showcases their game and it looks like this? Or like this? And then you look back at your game and you find it looking like this. Look, I've been there. And to be honest, my current game, Chess Survivors, is the first time I've made a game that I think actually looks cool. But I'm not exactly sure how and when that happened. All that I know is that game dev is a long journey of learning and figuring out these little tricks here and there to help you make it look good. Hi, I'm Aarimous, and right now, yes, right now, you too can wishlist Chess Survivors over on Steam. But without further ado, let's get into it. Within the first couple weeks of developing Chess Survivors, I added this dark purple vignette, and I think it's one of the only things that I've added that I haven't significantly changed over the past few months. It's arguably also the most impactful visual element. Don't believe me? Well, let me turn it off and back on. Right? The game is starkly different without it on. And there's a few smaller, subtle things I'm doing here which really make this effect pop. Most notably, there's a slight breathing pattern that I create using the animation node in some of these shaders variables. You're not really supposed to notice it, but this little effect gently adds to the impending doom of the ever-growing horde of chess-based enemies. Another small but impactful addition was turning the vignette red on player damage and then keeping it red while they're on low health. This really does give the player clear feedback that they're in danger. Vignettes won't always work this well, but the main lesson I want you to take away here is to focus on multi-purpose design and find more than one use for your visual elements. I find that this really helps make a unique and cohesive visual style for your games. With the vignette creating the moody elements I was going for, the next step was to create some visually contrasting elements. I decided to go with a glow effect since Chess Survivors already has that nice dark style. One of the key resources in Chess Survivors are the XP gems which drop from defeated enemies. As such, I wanted to ensure that they stood out visually against the background. And let me tell you, this sucked. I iterated constantly on these gems over the past few months, and I finally think I landed on something I'm mostly happy with. It turns out glow is surprisingly hard to get right. Too little, and nobody notices it, but too much, and all of a sudden your game becomes visually muddy. Your results may vary here, but the big lesson to learn here is to use contrasting elements to draw the player's eye to key gameplay elements. I also learned that you shouldn't be afraid to keep tweaking your visual elements left, right, up, down until they finally work together. But keep in mind, perfect is the enemy of good. Hey, all of a sudden Chess Survivors is kind of looking atmospheric, but now it felt empty. So then I decided to add in procedural walls using open simplex noise. Go leave a comment below if you want to see a video talking specifically about my custom tile map solution. And while you're there, considering liking and subscribing. But this video is about visuals, not code. So the walls originally had one texture and looked like this. I know, bland, disjoint, and clearly a silly monkey dev made them. But I had one little trick up my sleeve. That is procedural texture generation. Now, the term procedural has been a bit of a buzzword invoking ideas of artificial intelligence and complex algorithms. I'm here to tell you that it's typically just some simple logic and a bunch of if statements. In my case, that meant each tile would check to see if its neighbors were also walls and then pick these corresponding art and rotation correctly. Aarimous, this is super unoptimized. And you're correct. Don't get me wrong, you're correct. But I'm trying to make and ship my first ever game, and my first goal is to actually create the game. And thus far, I really haven't had to refactor that solution at all, which is my key lesson here. Oftentimes, the simplest solution is the best. I know, and now you're saying, this is great, Aarimous, but how do I make my game look that good? Well, I think it's as simple as focusing on some of the feelings you're trying to invoke and then looking for a few visual elements which will work together to help create those feelings. For example, in my game Chess Survivors, I wanted to create this feeling of impending doom, which naturally led me to some darker themes and then a major element, the vignette effect, which would obscure most of the screen. This created a little bit of claustrophobic feeling and really amplified that impending feeling. From there, it was a bunch of experimenting with various different pieces, and then finally, you need to get some feedback and let other people experience your game. Again, game dev is a long journey, and you're gonna be blown away by how much better you get over the years. As a small bonus tip, I'd suggest using a popular color palette from the site LowSpec as a starting point. This will give your game a cohesion right off the bat, and then you can expand the color palette as your game matures. Thanks for watching. A special shout out to all my Patreon supporters and Twitch subscribers. I've been Aarimous. Have a wonderful day.